On behalf of the International Institute for Secular Humanistic Judaism, let me welcome you to Colloquium 97. In case you don't know what the International Institute for Secular Humanistic Judaism is, let me tell you that it is part of a movement. It is a young movement. It is a growing movement. And the International Institute is the school that was established in 1985, actually in Jerusalem, in order to be the intellectual arm and the educational arm and the training arm of our movement of secular humanistic Judaism. And we have lots of programs of which we are proud. We have been training leaders for over 10 years, madrichim and madrichot, in our movement who serve our communities. We are in the process of training rabbis. We are organizers of adult and youth education. But I think one of the most important things that we have done happened 2 years ago here. And there were some of you who were here for Colloquium 95. And that was built on an idea that we had that our movement and the Institute should be relevant to the issues in Jewish life, important and controversial issues. And there were lots of those issues around. One of them, the unaffiliated Jew, was the first issue we dealt with in Colloquium 95. And we figured out how we're going to deal with it. Well, were we simply going to have a series of sequential lectures and the question period? Wouldn't it be much more wonderful to bring together a group of very intelligent and very concerned and very appropriate people who understood the issues and just have them talk to each other, make statements, and then let the others respond? And wouldn't that be wonderful if we could listen in to the conversation? So that's called a colloquium. And in fact, we had that in 95, 2 years ago, and we now have that here. And there was a question that has been around our movement for a long time. It's a question that's in the Jewish world. It's never been fully resolved because there are like secrets. There are all kinds of ideas that are circulated among people in the academic world that never seem to penetrate to the popular world. And even sometimes in the most liberal circles, ideas are circulated that seem to have no currency or respectability in the academic circles. But the issue that concerned us, because we as secular humanistic Jews are searching for our roots in the Jewish experience, the great question for us is, what are our roots? And what are our roots is not the imagined history of the Jewish people. What are our roots is the real history of the Jewish people as far as it can be determined. And at one time we assumed we knew it. And now we're not so sure. And as you know, telling Jewish history is a problem. Jewish history is tied up with the vested interests of three great world religions. And therefore, to separate the telling of Jewish history from the vested interests of people who would like to have certain answers, and in fact they would like historians to give those answers, is very, very hard. Jewish history is tied up certainly with the phenomenon of anti-Semitism. I mean, we just had an experience on the front page of the Detroit News about the Purple Gang. Can we tell the story of the Jewish people as it was in the city of Detroit, or is it embarrassing? Do we always have to be concerned about what other people will say about us? Do we have to doctor the telling of history in order to meet the terrible phenomenon of anti-Semitism? And in the century of the Holocaust, that's incredible. And we're also caught up with the passionate politics of the Jewish world. I mean, whether you like Netanyahu, don't like Netanyahu, are a Zionist, not a Zionist, whatever, I mean, we're caught up in the politics of things. So trying to have what I call a fairly objective, naturalistic, balanced view of Jewish history? That's the question. Is it possible? So we have brought here, hopefully talking together to each other, the people who, if anybody can present us with that naturalistic, balanced, fairly objective view of Jewish history. And if somehow we can touch that reality, and that reality can penetrate not simply to scholars, but reach out to the lay people of the Jewish world, that's very important. So that's why we're here, and that's the question. And what I would like to do is to introduce to you the members of the colloquium. I'm just going to read them in the order of, or present them in the order of their appearance in this colloquium. And I'm not going to make any long formal introduction. And I'd like you to hold your applause until the end. I just want them all to stand so that we can say hello, and they can say hello. Our keynote speaker for tonight, Stephen Zipperstein, professor of Jewish culture and history at Stanford. Tomorrow morning, Carol Myers, professor of religion at Duke University. Tomorrow morning, William Propp, associate professor of ancient and Judaic studies at the University of California, San Diego. Tomorrow afternoon, Eric Myers, professor of religion at Duke University, and Yaakov Malkin, a professor of rhetoric at Tel Aviv University, and one of the leaders in our movement and the founder of the new and very successful College for Pluralistic Judaism. On Saturday morning, Ari Elon, the director of the Department of Rabbinic Texts at the Reconstructionist Rabbinic College in Philadelphia. And on Saturday morning, Norman Cantor, professor of history, sociology, and comparative literature at New York University. Saturday afternoon, Ada Rappaport Albert, lecturer in the Department of Hebrew and Judaic Studies at the University College in London, England. Saturday afternoon, Lois Dubin, associate professor of religion and biblical literature at Smith College. And Sunday morning, Yehuda Bauer, no stranger to this community, leader of our movement, the first president of the International Federation, Holocaust scholar and professor at Hebrew University, and leader of research at Yad Vashem Institute in Jerusalem, and also Sunday morning, Derek Pensler, associate professor of history and Judaic studies at Indiana University. I think a very impressive group of people, assembly. Would you please give them your welcome? Before we have our keynote address, I just want to offer some reminders. First, when you came into the building, you most likely saw a registration table. If you are registered, obviously, for the colloquium, even tonight, and if you haven't done so, please pick up your registration materials so that you will know the schedule and all the rules for the conference. 2, we have a tight schedule, and so we are going to begin promptly at the times designated. And we are going to begin promptly tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, and promptly at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and promptly at 9 o'clock Saturday morning and 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and the same for Sunday morning. For those of you who said, well, I love colloquia, I don't like colloquia, I always say colloquiums. All right. If you like, colloquium, some people say, well, I got a question, I want to talk. Well, this is a colloquium, so what we've arranged at this colloquium are 3 periods where you can talk, discuss, and ask questions. On Friday and Saturday at 4 o'clock, the members of the Institute faculty will conduct a discussion on the issues discussed during the day, which will last each time for 1 hour. And on Sunday, at the very end, we're all going to assemble together, and then we're going to open it up to questions that come from the audience, from the floor, from all of you participating in this event. I want to remind you that the wonderful art show that was first presented, created by Felice Malkin, on Jewish representational art, the protest art, if you will, at a time when it wasn't sanctioned by the establishment. That art, the history of that art, expressed in the wonderful pictures that we have. That art show is now mounted in the Pivnik Center, which is just beyond the family room. That is the room where we will dine. And please go and see it at any convenient time. I want to remind you that there are books by our people, by our speakers, that are on the book table out in the foyer. I hope you'll look at them and that you will acquire them. I want to remind you that most of you are going to be remaining for food, and I hate to do trivial things, but I do want to tell you not to lose those meal tickets, all right, that are in your folder. And I want to remind you that there are two very special evening programs. Tomorrow night, we will have our Shabbat celebration, and at that time we will have, as we had 2 years ago, the graduation of our leaders, our madrichim and madrichot, from the International Institute, the leaders of our movement and our future. And then on Saturday evening, we have a special program, a celebration of Jewish culture called Elijah's Violin, the sound of the Jewish people. After all, we have just finished with the Sukkot celebration and Simchat Torah, and this is our way of celebrating what is important to us. Now, one of the things that has made this colloquium possible is that we received a very substantial and significant contribution and donation from the Jewish Federation of Metropolitan Detroit. And we are enormously grateful to the Federation. We are part of that Federation. We are part of the Metropolitan Jewish community here in the Detroit area. And we have a representative of the Federation here to bring us greetings. He's a longtime Detroiter. He has been a leader in our community for a long time. He is an attorney. He worked with National United Jewish Appeal as the chair of the National Young Leadership Cabinet. He has been the chair of the Allied Jewish Campaign here, and he's presently the vice president of the Jewish Welfare Federation, and his name is Larry Jackier, and we are delighted to have him here.
Thank you, Rabbi Wein, and on behalf of my mother, who would believe all of that stuff that you just recited, thank you again. It's truly my pleasure to be here this evening to bring you greetings on behalf of the Jewish Federation of Metropolitan Detroit at the outset of this incredible colloquium that is beginning here this evening. It is obvious from looking at the distinguished roster of scholars behind me, as well as the syllabus, which I had an opportunity to examine briefly during dinner, that this is going to be a seminal event in our community. And our Federation is gratified to be able to participate. As the Rabbi indicated, we have been able to provide some financial resources to this colloquium, and I want to assure you that this will only be the beginning. As you go through the various sessions, I have no doubt that very interesting perspectives will be shared with you. But I think one of the things that will become clear, that throughout Jewish history, there were core and are core Jewish values that don't change. One of the primary of which is the value of Jewish education. And of course, one of the things that makes it so wonderful for our Federation to be financially supportive of this event is the fact that this is such an incredible educational opportunity for all of you who have been so wise to choose to participate. Of course, education is a tremendously important priority in our community. In fact, for those of you who do participate in the community on the broader level, and I see a number of you here whom I recognize, you know that Jewish education is the #1 priority of our Federation. You'll also know that it just doesn't happen, that we go out to our fellow Jews for a significant period of our calendar and ask one another to make whatever kind of quality financial commitment they can to our community so that we can deal with the issues of Jewish education as well as all of the other priorities that need to be addressed in our community. Let me take a moment then to mention that on Sunday, November 2nd, Super Sunday is occurring. I should also point out, and I don't see her in the audience tonight, but one of the 2 co-chairmen of the Allied Jewish campaign for this year is a member of the Birmingham Temple, Susie Citron. She has done an incredible job as its co-chairman last year. She has graciously agreed to take the co-chairmanship again this year, and it's quite a kudo to the Birmingham Temple to have someone like Susie taking on that kind of responsibility. But on Sunday, November 2nd, we hope that you will participate as you have in the past. The Birmingham Temple has been exceptionally supportive of Super Sunday, both in terms of responding when you're called, as well as coming to volunteer at the Federation offices to make calls. And I want to encourage you to participate again and to participate throughout the campaign year in our community. The theme of your colloquium, Reclaiming Jewish History, is a fascinating one. I want to suggest that the community has several opportunities in which, if I'm not being too chutzpahdik in suggesting it, you have an opportunity to be a part of Jewish history. The first is coming up this coming summer when the Federation is sponsoring the 2nd Miracle Teen Mission to Israel. We expect to take 360 of our youngest and brightest teenagers to Israel. I want to encourage the Temple to send your teenagers with us on this experience. It is going to be outstanding, I guarantee it. And it will re-energize all of you when those teenagers come back here and share with you what they will have experienced. And then a year later than that, in the spring of 1999, actually April 18th to 28th, the community will be having the 3rd Miracle Mission. That's for all of us. Many of you as individuals have participated in the 1st and 2nd Miracle Missions, but I want to encourage you as the Birmingham Temple to recruit a bus, to come as a bus, and be part of the Miracle Mission as one of our significant institutions in the community. Whatever itinerary issues we need to address to make it successful for the Birmingham Temple, I assure you we will. I say that because I have the position of being a former chairman of the 2nd Miracle Mission and an advisor to the 3rd one, so I think I can make good on that kind of commitment. So please, consider that in your agenda as the Birmingham Temple to come with us in April of 1999. In closing, let me just say that on a personal level, it's a real pleasure to be able to bring greetings to such a prestigious colloquium with such a roster of distinguished scholars behind me. I appreciate the opportunity that you have given our Federation to send a representative here to greet you. And finally, I want to wish you all a yasher koach, because I know that this colloquium will not only stimulate creative thinking throughout our community, but throughout the Jewish world. Thank you.